So they kind of actually went through this until they got to, we see Delron skipped the vocabulary development, whereas Damien actually did answer the question about vocabulary development. So he came up with a title on his own. The recognizing cause and effect struck me because a lot of students, they simply couldn't do that. And I do find that students regularly have difficulty with cause and effect. But this one was striking to the point where some students literally gave up. I mean, they just kind of threw the paper away, and everyone asked questions, and I explained how to do it. Went over the first two as examples, and explained how this was supposed to work. So the cause, because water in the estuary is shallow, the effect, sunlight can reach to the bottom. Shallow water, sunlight can get through the water, plants can grow.
Oh,
So,
wow, so they're basically just.
right, and it is in the reading. So a lot of this
So
is
it's
described in the
pulling
reading
it
also, right?
directly from the
Going back
text.
to the text.
Exactly. So they have to go back to the text in order to recognize the cause and effect. But some students, that was the biggest challenge. Once I explained it, some students said, oh, okay, I think I can do this. And I walked around, worked with quite a few of them to make sure that they were doing it correctly. But I had 2 or 3 that simply didn't do it. They gave up. And one student actually said, well, Ms. March, I'll just take whatever grade I have. She did the first 2 that I went over in class, but she wouldn't do any more on her own. And I thought that was very interesting.
So you think it's just their reading comprehension level is what gives them the biggest challenge with this assignment?
Certain skills within reading gives them the challenge, because
Right.
that same student who gave up had no problem doing the main idea or the vocabulary development. And that same student also typically does the assignments, because a lot of the assignments in the curriculum, very literal questions. Now, when I either come up with questions that require more thinking, or I give them the critical thinking questions, she asks a lot of questions in order to get the answers, in order to kind of think through it. But for this particular day, a lot of students had trouble with this assignment.
So I'm sorry, I'm looking at the first one,
Mm-hmm.
and basically you're just completing.
Yes. Yeah. I know.
Okay. So like when it says, because water in the, is it estuary,
Yes.
is, I just lost it,
Shallow.
shallow, and then right after it, it says sunlight can reach all the way to the bottom of the estuary.
But I think their concept of cause and effect they had trouble with. Just understanding when there's a cause, there's an effect. And you can ask them, okay, if you throw trash on the ground, what can be the effect? They can kind of, if you give them a problem, they can come up with some possible causes. But now when I put it into the framework of the actual scientific terms, it requires more thinking. And a lot of them tell me point blank, Ms. Marsh, I don't want to read. I said, well, you can read. Yes, but I don't want to read. So they don't like to go back to the text. And I ask them to go back to the text all the time. So it's a challenge that I face on a regular basis.
And that's what we were talking about. If you remember, you weren't here on the PD day. We talked about the skill will challenge. Like, what part is what their skill,
Right.
and what is the will? Like, oh, I don't want to read it. I'm not going to read. I'm not even going to try to
Right.
read. You can read, right? Yeah, I can read, but I'm not going to do it.
So on this day, Delron was very willing to do the assignment. Today, not so much. So, so the skills, I can recognize when the skills are there, and I like to tell them, hey, well, I'll show them their grades, let them know, hey, you've done this particular assignment before, we've done this before. You can do this. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Like you said, it all depends upon what they're going through
Right.
that particular day.
What successes did you see with this?
I saw that a lot of students were willing to overcome the challenge. They would go back to the text, even though they may not have wanted to. They did. Because I said, that's what you got to do. I gave them 2 examples, and I wouldn't go over the other ones until they had finished. So that was a success I see. Whenever I see them, I guess, overcoming themselves in a sense. What they usually do, put their heads down or walk out. And when they decide to actually stay put and put forth the effort, I see that as a success.
And that's something that one of the things why we're really getting into data and talking about the behaviors is because we're really tracking more behavior. We're kind of like in uncharted territory. No other schools are really tracking behavior and how it affects students' will to do their work.